back to another EDH set review. Today we have the Commander Legends Baldur's Gate set. So everything's been previewed, as well as the Commander precons. If you haven't seen one of my set reviews, I am purely reviewing these cards in the perspective of mono black, building mono black commander decks. I love building mono black decks, and I do like to play black cards. So I will be going through this list purely as mono black, building mono black decks. So if it's for another color, I won't go through it. I only care about building mono black. So we'll go through. Normally there isn't that many legends to go through, but today we have quite a few. Now I'm sure you've already come across other videos or other articles basically explaining background. Essentially it's partner or partner with, or more like friends forever, but with an enchantment rather than a creature. All right, so we'll go through each of them. So Burakos, party leader, 3 and a black. It's an orc, but it also counts as a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. When it attacks, defending player loses X, and you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of creatures in your party. Choose a background. Okay, so it has choose a background, which means it partners with an enchantment, and those enchantments can give you another color. So I think a lot of these are costed to allow you the benefit of having another color, but of course I only care about building black. So some of these probably will be maybe a little bit weaker because it assumes that you're going to build it with another color, but I will only be pairing it with mono black ones, so you know it doesn't really add a lot other than an additional commander. So with this one, so it is party tribal. It only ever counts one thing, so the most you're ever going to get is 4 life and 4 treasures, and it doesn't have any kind of evasion or any way really to protect itself. Mono black is not necessarily a party color, but I would say that clerics, I mean, it can be a little bit supported. It's mainly white, but it's more like, you know, those kind of evil clerics. Wizards, highly supported, and rogues, highly supported as well. And warriors, there's a little bit. So clerics and warriors are probably a bit harder to fill. I mean, parties, probably not really a particularly strong mechanic, I would think. You might make this as a bit of a meme mono black deck. I think this one really works better with other colors, but then you're attacking, you're getting treasures, which is really nice, but then only losing a little bit of life, and you're kind of swinging out with your commander, so you have to have the benefit of making it indestructible, giving it some kind of evasion, flying or something like that. So those are additional actions that you need to perform in your game. So ultimately I don't think it's a particularly strong one. I think it'll be fun, kind of like a party Voltron, and the art is really cool. So there we go. Haunted one. So this is our first background. So it's a legendary enchantment. So this does pair with your commander if they have choose a background, but some of these, you know, you could just put them in your 99, right? So commander creatures, and they all have this commander creatures you own have. So it gives your commanders something, or essentially your one commander, or if you're playing partners and this is in the 99, you have 2 commanders with this, I guess. But essentially it's, you know, to be put in your command zone. So whenever this creature becomes tapped, it and other creatures you control that share a creature type with it get +2/+0 and gain Undying until end of turn. Okay, and it's only 2 and a black. So a lot of these backgrounds are actually cheap in terms of cost. So +2/+0 and Undying, very strong. Things I think about are Zombie Tribal, very easily. Your commander, whenever this creature comes to card, so your commander has to be tapped. So essentially it is something that you want to be attacking most likely, or I'm thinking like Ghoulcaller Gisa, who taps to sacrifice to create zombies, which then makes all your other zombies +2/+0. But you are making tokens in that deck, but you still are filling out with zombie cards so they can get Undying. So kind of like Machias is what I'm thinking. Or if you have like a mono black vampires deck, very aggressive, giving them Undying, that's probably even better for Undying. Because they don't have that many tokens. So Drana, Liberator Malakir, or any of the Dranas, they're all attacking Dranas. So something like that in your Vampire tribal deck maybe. Or Rats in your Rat tribal deck, making your Rats Undying and +2/+0. I think this is really good. I think this one can actually be in your 99 relatively easy enough. You really have to care about, do I 100% always want my commander? Because if you don't have your commander, this does nothing, absolutely nothing, right? So it's 3 mana, do nothing. So I think you really need to weigh that up. So I think backgrounds are something that I think we're all going to have to test, but I do like it, and I think it could possibly make the 99 of a lot of decks. Yeah, cool. Faceless one. Not going to say too much about Faceless one. 5 mana, you choose a color and you can choose a background, and this is your commander. This is for draft if you don't draft a commander, so not really relevant, I would say, unless you want to build mono black meme. Sure. Cultist of the Absolute. So another background, commander creature. So it's 1 mana, so very cheap. Commander creatures you own get +3/+3 and have flying, death touch, ward, pay 3 life, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Now, this is really interesting. It's 1 mana, right? So sometimes, a lot of times, I don't have anything to do on turn 1. So this is really great. So +3/+3, flying, death touch, ward, and sacrifice creatures. I thought about this in a Rankle Master of Pranks deck, although it already has flying. It's not really a commander damage kind of deck. Ward, pay 3 life is, it sounds good, but it's actually probably not that good. Having your opponents lightning bolt themselves, I'd probably pay that most of the time if I could. So I don't think it's too much of a problem. So it's really, do I want to be attacking with my commander? Is it a Voltron commander that sacrifices? Now, that's not usually an archetype that kind of goes well together, although there is a commander in this set that really pairs well with this. So I'll wait until that one, till we chat about that one. But really, it's a Voltron Aristocrats deck, or attacking Aristocrats deck. So vampires probably wouldn't want to have this. Yeah, it's hard. I think there is a commander that suits this really well. Other than that, I think it's not that great, right? You need to really, like, I mean, Sengir already has flying. Do you really need to make it bigger? Sure. I mean, why not? But it's 1 mana, so it's super cheap. Okay, next, Shadowheart Dark Justicar. 3 to black, human elf cleric, so half elf. 3/4, has a 1 in a black, tap, sacrifice another creature, draw X, where X is the creature's power. So this is Bolus, Disciple of Bolus, but you don't gain the life. So this is really cool. I really like this one. I think this one is probably just generically powerful. The problem, I guess, is the 1 in a black tap cost. So 2 mana for this effect is a bit expensive. I wonder if this is like just play like my power matters creatures, but then what's the win condition? Because you are only, it's not like you can play things that tap, untap, tap, like Thornbite Staff or whatever, right? Because you have to continuously pay 2. I still think it's a lot of value though. Like you have Rotting Regisaur or something, you just draw 7 cards. That sounds kind of cool. And you get to choose a background, right? So you get an additional color. So maybe this might be better in some other deck, but ultimately I'm not really playing Disciple Bolus. It doesn't really make a lot of my lists, so do I want a tap ability for this? Probably not. But I love the art. Agent of the Iron Throne, so 2 and a black. So this is a background. Commander creatures you own have whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. This one I really like. Essentially, it makes, you know, your commander kind of like a Blood Artist effect. You're not gaining life, but essentially the whole point is you want them to be losing life. And it's also artifacts and creatures, so supports our treasure synergies coming in. Even Black's getting a lot of treasure synergies, so I think this one's really powerful. I think this one might even make the lists of some 99s maybe. Now I have been brewing around this and another commander that I've yet to chat about, so I do like this one a lot, just to kind of add another aristocrats effect, and this aristocrats effect is in our command zone, so that's really powerful. I have always wanted to make a marionette master deck, and this might be something that goes into something like that. I always keep brewing and can never get something that I'm really satisfied with. So this might help that, but I don't think it helps it a lot, but I think it might go in. I really like it. I think it's one of the best ones. Agent of the Shadow Thieves, 1 and a black. So it's a background. Whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, put 1+1 counter on that creature against Death Touch and Indestructible. This one's okay, right? So you don't get a lot of value, so it's essentially like dethrone. You're attacking the highest person. In theory, they might be the one that's most in front. Not usually, though, I guess. So you get just a +1/+1 counter, Death Touch, Indestructible. So another one of those kind of Voltron attacking. I mean, a lot of these backgrounds are attack focused, so yeah, this one's kind of cool. I think this one's just like kind of generic. You really need to want to have your commander, so Call Ash or something like that, where you just want to be attacking. The Death Touch actually might be pretty cool, but you always have to attack the person highest, and that might not be always beneficial. I think it's okay. I think it might be better for draft, just to encourage attacking. Criminal Past. 2 and a black. So it's a background. This creature gets +X/+O, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. I really like this one. This one's another one where it's another one that encourages attacking. So really, we want something that has our commander attacking. But this one does care about creatures in our graveyard, so possibly some discard strategies, but then how many of them have commanders that we want to attack? This one seems more like a Golgari card to me rather than mono black, just because it has more mill. Sir Conrad doesn't really want this because I guess you're not really attacking with Sir Conrad. Yeah, I can't really tell what deck would want this yet. I think it's a cool effect, but yeah, ultimately I don't know what attacking mill creature we want. Maybe like Lorcan, because it flies, has evasion. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where this one goes, but I kind of like it. Safana Calimport Cutthroat, 2 and a black. Menace Human Rogue, so it goes in your party. At the beginning of your end step, if you have the initiative, create a treasure token. Create 3 of those treasure tokens instead if you completed a dungeon. Has background. So initiative means you go into the Undercity or you continue on down the Undercity. If you have it, and it kind of is like Monarch. Yeah, this one's kind of okay. It doesn't do much. It really just depends on how much you want the Undercity. At the beginning of your end step, if you have the initiative, create a treasure token. So it doesn't give you the initiative. Some of them have take the initiative, so you don't get a treasure straight away. So really you want an attacking, evasive kind of deck to make sure that you can always take the initiative, but you still need things that will start the initiative if you have the initiative, right? There's no way giving it initiative. So we really need something to start the initiative and then attack with it to kind of keep it. And then it's just treasures. So I think it's too many hoops to go through. Saravok, Deathbringer. 3 and a black, Human Knight. Knight's a weird one to have in a party kind of themed set. Although the main set's not party themed. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no permanents left the battlefield this turn, that player loses X life, where X is Saravok's power, and choose a background. So when I was talking about what pairs really well with Cultists of the Absolute, this one pairs really well with Cultists, with Saravok, right? So it would become a 6-7. So everyone will be losing 6 life if no permanents left the battlefield. So this one's an interesting one. So you want at least a permanent to leave on your turn, because this does affect you. So you want to make sure, right? So you want to be the Aristocrats Voltron deck, because you want a high power and you want to make sure permanents leave. And how best to do that in Mono Black? Aristocrats. And Cult of the Absolute supports that, right? At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So really, really nice with that. Essentially, it's going to meet that clause. The interesting part is whether your opponents will not have permanents leaving the battlefield. Now, if it's a Voltron deck, really you need to focus around making it unblockable, because someone can just block, right? Yes, you're getting rid of one of their permanents, but you're not getting that trigger. I think that this trigger will trigger more than people think, but not that much that it's really busted, right? I think there will be lots of turns, turn 4, people are starting to still put down permanents. They're starting to create their board. They might have played their fetch lands early, things like that, but I guess they see that you're playing this and maybe they keep it. So I think that they probably need to go some effort to have a permanent leave. I think that permanents leaving are not happening as much as I think it's happening more than people think, but again, not as much as it being busted. So for people that say, okay, this will never trigger, I don't think that's the case. I think it will actually trigger quite a lot, but not every turn on every player. So if you give it unblockable, then they can't trade in order to stop the permanent from leaving. So you stopping the permanent leaving. So you're hitting them for the damage, and then you're essentially, hitting them again. And then with things like Wound Reflection, Archfiend of Despair, you're then doubling that up again. So I think this is a really cool deck. This one's one I've been brewing around with as well. It's also uncommon. The art is super cool. It's like it reminds me of Death Knight. So really, really cool. I think it's fun. Sifris Nightmare Speaker, 3 and a black, Snake Cleric Warlock, has tap to sacrifice another creature or an artifact. For each opponent, you mill a card, then return that card from your graveyard to your hand unless that player pays 3 and choose a background. So this one I think pairs really well with Agent of the Iron Throne here. Essentially, it's the aristocrat part of, the life loss part of this aristocrat's deck. So you will sacrifice a creature enchantment with Agent of the Iron Throne. They're going to lose a life because you've done that. Then you're going to mill 3 cards, and then each opponent will choose whether they pay 3. So you're essentially lightning bolt people, right? So they'll have plenty of life at the start, so they're just going to be okay with you just milling a card for each of them. So they're each going to take a lightning bolt. There's another one that I think, Wound Reflection, Archfiend of Despair. I know I've now brought that up twice. Wound Reflection is a bit of a pet card for me. I really love decks that can play Wound Reflection, because this is lightning bolting people. Now they get to choose whether, right? So you can lightning bolt somebody, or you can draw a card, and I think those are good alternatives. And I think people will start to, as the game gets on, they're gonna not pay for that life, right? They're getting down to 20. They're going to start thinking about it. It's the same with Sylvan Library, right? You know, you get that low, you start thinking about it. But before that, you don't really think about it. So I think they're going to take lots of damage. But this one supports that untap, you know, that Thornbite Staff untap kind of synergy, because we could just tap, you know, sacrifice something, untap, sacrifice, untap, whatever, right? So this really supports that. And then, you know, we can get people's life totals low and then play a Wound Reflection and be really happy. So yeah, I really like Severus. I also, in Dungeons and Dragons, I really love Yuan-Ti, which is what this character is, even though it's a snake here, but it's a Yuan-Ti. And yeah, they're one of my favorite races, but they're really hard to play because Dungeons and Dragons is full of racist people. So it's hard to play like a evil race, which is ironically right next to it, this drow. So 2 and a black for Visona, Drow Apostate, Elf Cleric. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Choose a background. So this is essentially a what's the Oversold Cemetery on a creature, which is really good because that card is, you know, pretty expensive. It's not necessarily budget. So 4 or more cards. So again, this one, you know, kind of suits the more Golgari, but you know, essentially drawing an extra card each turn when you're milled a lot of creatures. So you really need to make sure that you're milling. So maybe you might play this even in 99 if it's Sir Conrad deck, because you're going to essentially bring one of those creatures back, which will trigger your Sir Conrad. So you might play that in 2 and a black for 2/2, maybe. But essentially, I really like this effect. I think that I haven't built a deck good enough for it, so I'd have to think about this one. And then Scion of Halaster, 1 and a black. The first time you would draw a card each turn, instead look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them in graveyard and one of them back on top of your library. So it's just and then draw a card. So it's just some filtering. Ultimately, I think 2 mana for this is just not really relevant. It's a common, so it's probably more for draft, but it allows you some of that selection, essentially to surveil. Yeah, it's okay. I don't know what deck I would want this in normally, but it's a nice little card. Okay, so that's the legends. I think Saravok I really like, Severus I really like. In terms of general appeal, I think Haunted One will appeal to a lot of people. Agent of the Iron Throne will appeal to a lot of people, and that's probably about it. I think Shadow Heart probably doesn't add more than what we are already doing. So these backgrounds really only probably irrelevant for these uncommon ones, which I really like. I really like Severus and Saravok. Safana doesn't seem to be doing anything interesting. Burakos seems really cool, but probably more in a multicolored party theme thing. And Cultists of the Absolute I think is a very good one as well, but you really need to have a commander that's well suited for it. So yeah, so some fun options. I think I think Saravok probably gives the most interesting or different kind of thing that we haven't really had before. Severus kind of just does something a little bit the same. And Shadowheart also does something the same. So Agent Iron Throne, really like. The rest are all very attacky backgrounds. Ultimately, yeah, super happy with them. Okay, so now Mythics and Legendaries, Mythics and Res. So we'll first go through Ancient Brass Dragon, 5 and 2 black, Elder Dragon, flying. When it deals combat damage, roll a d20. You put any number of target creature cards with total mana value X or less from graveyards onto the battlefield under your control, where X is the result. And it's a 7/6. Okay, this will be a common theme through this set, where big creature needs to attack, or needs to do damage, or needs to wait a turn, and it gets huge effect. I love this card. Ultimately, I think it's a bad card. I think you're going to put it in your decks and you're going to play it and it's going to be fun. You're going to roll that d20. You're going to get, you know, on average, what is it, 10.5. So you're going to get a lot of creatures. By turn 7, you know, your opponents will have most likely some creatures in the deck, but unless your opponents are really milling themselves, maybe they might have some, might not. So it's not really something you can play straight away, like, you know, you've ramped out in turn 5. So yeah, I think this has a really cool effect. Ultimately, I think it's a bad card. Blood Money, and sorry, Ancient Brass Dragon, I would definitely be playing with. That's for sure. I think it's a fun card. Blood Money. 5 and 2 black, sorcery, destroy all creatures. For each non-token creature destroyed this way, you create a tapped treasure. This one people like seem to really like. So destroy all creatures is a 4 mana effect. And then for each non-token creature, so not tokens, create a creature destroyed this way, you create a tapped treasure token. So you cannot use it straight away, so you have to wait until your next turn. And how many treasures do I have to make for this to be okay? Because I paid 7 mana for this. Like 5, 6. So then on my next turn, on my turn after that, I have like 14 mana. Seems okay, but everyone else has already had their turn. And I've just needed to use the treasure just to catch up, to get back in front of everyone. Ultimately, I think 7 mana is a lot. I think this will be really cool sometimes. I think this reminds me of kind of like the black market effect, that it's just going to get so big sometimes that you'll always think back to that time. Oh man, I had 20 treasures on this. And then you don't actually think about what did those treasures actually do for me. I like it. I'll play it. But ultimately, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I don't think that you're not going to replace Toxic Deluge. You're not going to replace Mutilate. We replaced Damnation for this? I don't think so. So maybe if you're looking for the fourth board wipe, normally my fourth board wipe is something a bit synergistic. So maybe. I mean, if I'm playing a Treasures deck, you know, and you're playing an Agent of the Iron Throne deck, like this could go in it. So I could see it, you know, having some play. Nautiloid ship, 4 mana, artifact, vehicle, flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. When it deals combat damage, you may put creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control. You may put a creature card exiled with ship onto the battlefield under your control. Okay. Ultimately, I think this goes more into like the mill horror Demir deck, but I really think this is a cool card. It has to attack, but it's a vehicle, so it kind of has that bit of protection. It has flying. Yeah, this is a cool card. Yeah, I think this is really cool. I mean, it's going to be situational. You want your opponents to have something really big that you can get. Yeah, I think this is really cool. I think this will be like the 110th card. Like, you'll put this in because this is really good value, but is it synergistic with your deck? Maybe not, right? So this might be like your 101st card. You know, you need one more card. This might be it because it doesn't really synergize a lot. But I really like the whole stealing kind of thing with the Mind Flayer, Aravanox, or whatever the non-Stranger Things is, where it's kind of stealing people's cards. I think this might go in there. That might be cool. I have been wanting to brew that Mind Flayer deck. So yeah, I think it's cool. Great. Packed weapon, 3 and a black, equipment. As long as it is attached, you don't lose a game for having 0 or less life. When this creature attacks, draw a card and reveal it. The creature gets +X/+X until end of turn and lose X life, where X is the card's mana value, and to equipped, discard a card. I love this card. I really like this card. I think the first effect is really, really cool. I think you want to probably play this in a Voltron deck where you're attacking, or something where you want your commander to be attacking. So my Korlash deck would really love this. The first effect's great. So while it's equipped, we want it to be equipped. It's going to lose life. You don't lose the game for losing life. The equipped discard a card can be synergistic if we want it to be, so that's quite nice. And then it has the kind of, you get +X/+X, and then the Dark Confidant kind of trigger where it's mana value and you lose that life. So it's drawing it. So as long as you can kind of guarantee, so you kind of play this, equip it on the turn that you're going to attack to kind of maximize your opportunity. I really, really love this card. I think it's really cool. We want our... Do we care if we don't attack? That's the question. 4 mana. For Platinum Angel? Seems cool. I like it. I think it's worth trying in something that's probably more attacky than anything. Vexing Puzzle Box 3. Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, put a number of charge counters on Vexing Puzzle Box. Add 1 mana value color. Roll a d20. Remove 100 charge counters. Search your library for an artifact. Put it onto the battlefield. Then shuffle. So how many rolls? An average 10.5. So you need to roll this like 9-10 times. I think this goes in a dice rolling deck, which is not really mono black. And even then, it's 3 mana rock. But it searches for an artifact. That's pretty cool. But we're just not rolling enough dice for that, I think. So goes to some other deck, I think. Altar of Baal, I think I'm saying it right. 1 and a black for an artifact. It has an adventure, so it's sorcery for 2 and a black. Create a tapped black skeleton creature token with menace, and it has the artifact part has 2 and a black. Exile a creature you control. Return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. Only activate as a sorcery. So it gives you the creature for 3 mana. Then you play it the next turn, but you have to wait a whole nother turn. The 2 and a black is kind of awkward, and it exiles the creature. So really, you want tokens and then big things to reanimate. Ultimately, I think that it's probably a bit overcosted. You don't get the die trigger. This needs to be like aristocrat. It needs to be like tokens, big things in graveyards. I think it's okay. I think it's... you're just probably not going to play this, right? It just doesn't really do much. I think it's too many hoops to go through. Asterian's Thirst. 3 and a black. Instant. Exile target creature. Put X+1/+1 counters on a commander creature you control, where X is the power of the creature exiled this way. Ultimately, I think this card sucks. 4 mana to exile target creature. That's probably a bit expensive if you compare it to like Vraska's Contempt. And then so for not hitting planeswalkers, you get +X. You get +1/+1, where X is the creature, the power of the creature, right? So you want to do something big. You also have to have a commander, and you have to have a commander that cares about counters, right? So it's just so many more additional hoops that you need to go through, where I would probably just play Defile or something like that. Deadly Relic, you never cut Deadly Relic for this, obviously, but this will be a bulk rare. You'll put in your budget deck, sure. Black Market Connections, everyone loves this card. So 2 and a black, enchantment, the next Phyrexian Arena, allegedly. So at the beginning of your pre-combat main, so you still have to wait a turn. you get to choose one or more. So you can choose all three or any combination, but you must choose one. Create a treasure token, you lose 1 life. Draw a card, you lose 2 life. Create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with changeling, you lose 3 life. So for 6 mana, 6 life, you get a treasure token, draw a card, and a token. 3/2 token. I mean, 3/2 token is probably not too relevant. It's going to be relevant in, I guess, in aristocrats. The benefit of this is that, you know, it's super flexible. You choose any option of those. 1 life for a treasure token, I'd gladly pay. I think most of the time people are going to be create a treasure token, draw a card for 3 life. I think is okay. You know, bolt yourself and you get a card and a treasure token. I think that's pretty good. I think that's what most people do. And the token might be if I really need to, or I have the life gain to support. But, you know, in black, we have a few options for life gain. Yeah, ultimately, I think this will be a very powerful card. I think it will just be generically good, so it's just going to go in a lot of decks. I don't think you necessarily have to replace Phyrexian Arena. I think you just play both of them. Right, it's really good. But ultimately, I think I would take out Phyrexian Arena for this if I can only have one of them. You lose an extra life for that card, but you get the flexibility of the treasure. I'd probably just make sure that I've got enough life gain. Okay, Brainstealer Dragon, 5 and 2 black, flying. At the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of each opponent's library. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you cast this way, you may spend mana of any color. Whenever a non-land permanent an opponent owns when a non-land permanent an opponent owns enters the battlefield under your control, they lose life equal to the mana value. 6/6 Dragon Horror, really, really cool. This is just like Ancient Brass Dragon. Like, this is super cool card. It's beginning of the end step, so you will get it first off. But it cares about non-land permanents, so unless that permanent has flash, it's not really going to matter until the next turn. So yeah, and they just remain exiled. You may play it as long as it remains exiled. So, you know, you just always have access to it. But if you have the Brainstealer Dragon out, you're gonna start doming people in the face. Is it each opponent? Yeah, okay. The owner loses a life. Okay. An opponent owns its life, they lose. Okay, so if you choose their thing, you know, you're gonna dome. I really think this is cool. I like these effects. I think that, yeah, maybe in that Mind Flayer, this might fit that theme, but, you know, those cards are already expensive. But, yeah, I think this is a really fun card. I would just play this generically in a fun, you know, kind of fun budgety deck. I think this won't be too expensive. It isn't a commander set, though, so maybe. Call to the Void, 4 and a black. Sorcery, each player secretly chooses a creature they control and a creature they don't control. Then those choices are revealed. Destroy each creature chosen this way. I really hate these cards. I think they sound fun. They do sound fun. And I think they do. The intention is that they are to be fun. But what happens is that if you are in front and you play this card, so they choose their creature and then they'll choose your creature. You'll choose your creature and one of their creatures, but they will all choose one of theirs and one of yours. So then, you know, you're just going to lose your 3 creatures that you've chosen anyway, and then they all lose 1. For 5 mana, it's not really that great. If maybe you're behind, this might be okay, but, you know, we're mono black, we're the one that caused this effect, right? So they don't have to opt in if they think that you're the threat. Yeah, I mean, ultimately these, I think these are for play groups that know each other and can easily convince each other, right? If you're just playing LGS, I don't think it's a very good card. Elder Brain, 5 and 2 black, horror, menace. 6/6, when it attacks a player, exile all cards from that player's hand. They draw that many cards. They may play lands and cast spells from among, you may play lands and cast spells from among those cards, as long as they remain exiled. If you cast a spell this way, you may spend mana of either color. So, another one, just like Ancient Brass Dragon. That's the theme of the set. Fantastic card, so fun to play. It has menace, so it can get in, and you get essentially a whole additional hand that you can play. You don't have to have this, right? They just, as long as they remain exiled, you just play them, and you can play the lands. Like, you get a whole nother hand, but this has to attack. So I will 100% be playing this card, but it's bad card, 7 mana, but so fun. I will definitely be playing it. Eldritch Pack, 6 and a black sorcery. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of cards in their graveyard. I think this goes in a mill strategy. So you need Dimir mill, where you're milling your opponents so you can burn them out. They've got 50 cards in their library. You just smash them for 7 mana, 50 damage. I think that's what it is. You can, do some mill yourself. So in mono black, we have a comfortable mill. So what is it like going to be? 7 mana for 10 cards. Ultimately, I think this is just too expensive. 10 mana. We would want ways to reduce this. Yeah, I think it's really just to burn your opponents out. Fraying Line, 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, put a rope counter on target creature you control. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they may pay 2. If they do, they put a rope counter on their creature. Otherwise, exile this and each creature without a rope counter. So, and remove all rope counters. So it's nice. It's kind of like exile effect, but you're giving the person the option. So really, it's a 4 mana tax everyone 2 until somebody's ready to lose stuff. Pretty boring. Well, fun card, but ultimately doesn't do a lot, and you'll have to remember on each turn. Yeah, I think it's difficult. From the Catacombs, 3 and 2 black sorcery. Return target creature from the graveyard to the battlefield with a corpse counter on it. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it. You take the initiative, and it has escape. And escape is 3 and 2 black and 5 cards. 5 cards is a lot. I think you need a dedicated mill deck. 5 mana is a lot to return a creature, and it will get exiled afterwards. You do get to take the initiative, so you keep getting to take the initiative back, but you have to be milling. 5 cards is, a lot for an escape. Ultimately, I think this is too expensive. Intellect Devourer, 3 in a black, 2/4 horror. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent exiles a card from their hand until it leaves the battlefield. You may play lands and cast spells from among them. If you cast a spell this way, you may spend mana as though it was mana. So this is cool. It's like a baby Elder Brain. I'm sure that's what the theme was. But this one is when it leaves the battlefield. But hopefully you get... they know that you can play a land. So they might not give you a land. They might give you a really big spell. Well, would they give you a big spell? Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a cool card. 4 mana probably seems like a lot. Probably would have liked this at 3. But... yeah, it's a fun card. Ultimately, I just don't think it does enough. It's essentially... 4 mana, draw 3 unsynergistic cards sometimes, and then get swept up in a board wipe because it doesn't do anything else. Yeah. Mighty Servant of Luco. Trample, ward, discard a card. So okay, that's okay. When it becomes crewed for the first time, if it was crewed by exactly 2 creatures. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw 2 cards until end of turn. It has to crew 2. So, 2/2, so 2/2 zombies. And you draw 2 cards. But then it's an artifact in your zombie deck. Yeah, I don't think it really fits anywhere. You could put it in a deck and it would be fine. Mirror of the Life Trapping, 4. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it was cast, exile it, then return all other permanents cards exiled with Mirror Life Trapping to the battlefield under their opponent's control. It's a weird card. It does affect everyone. So enters the battlefield. If it was cast, exile it, then return all other. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you get the trigger, then it goes into the Mirror of Life trapping, then your other triggers come out. But it does affect your opponents. Ultimately, I think probably too expensive. Multiclass Baldur, 1 equipment, has lifelink if you control cleric, death touch for rogue, warrior, flying, flying if you have a wizard, haste if you have a warrior, death touch if you have a rogue, lifelink if you have cleric. If you have a full party, all damage that would be dealt, prevent all damage that would be dealt, and it's cost 2. I mean, yeah, if you're playing your party deck, it comes from the party commander deck, so if you're playing party, sure. Probably not something we do in Mono Black. Ravenloft Adventurer, 3 and a black. Whenever it enters the battlefield, so human rogue assassin. So, really good with Mary, first off. You take the initiative when a creature opponent would die, instead exile with a hit counter. Again, great with Mary. Whenever it attacks, if you complete a dungeon, defending player loses 1 life for each card they own in exile with a hit counter. So, ultimately, I think this goes in Mary decks. What else? And you take the initiative every time it comes in. So maybe you want to flicker it, but with Conjurer's Closet. But yeah, probably you're in your Mary deck where you want to be attacking a lot. Pretty much it. Seravox Tome, 4 mana. When it enters, you take the initiative. Okay, it taps for 1. If you have the initiative, taps for 2. So it's Hedron Archive. Exile, tap 3, pay 3, tap, exile cards from the top of your library until the exile a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Activate only if you complete a dungeon. Yeah, I mean, ultimately 4 mana seems like a lot, but if you have the initiative, so you want it in your attacky deck, and you want to be completing dungeons, ultimately I think this is probably maybe for draft. No, but it's a rare. I think it's a lot of hoops. Solemn Doom Guide, 3 and 2 black, Tiefling Cleric, flying. Each creature card in your graveyard that's a cleric, rogue, warrior, and or wizard has unearthed for 2. There's a 4/5. This is a cool card. I think your party deck's gonna be great. Art is fantastic. But would you play this in outside of that? I mean, maybe if you're playing Shadowborn Apostles, do you want creature gains haste, exile at the beginning of your next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield, so you would exile your Apostles. Yeah, not too sure. Maybe in a rogue tribal, maybe in your Mary deck where you've got a lot of rogues. Yeah, I don't know where this fits outside of a party, and because party we're not really going to be playing, but yeah, it's a cool card. Uchilon, 3 and a black, Crab Ooze Horror. Its power is equal to the number of Crab Ooze and Horrors you control, so it's a 1/4. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target creature from an opponent's graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of Uchilon. So this is really cool, right? So it's going to copy itself, and then the next turn it's going to copy itself twice, and then 4 times, 8 times, exponential. So really cool. How many creatures will your opponents have in their graveyards? That's going to depend. So maybe in your mill kind of strategy, if you're playing like Sir Conrad, Mindcrank, but then you're kind of comboing off anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this obviously goes in the Demir Horror mill deck, but I think it could be just a generically good card. Maybe with a little bit of mill synergy, which Mono Black can do anyway, just through Artifact Mill. So yeah, I think this is a really cool card. I think it's really cool. Okay, so those are rares. Things I really like: Ancient Brass Dragon, Blood Money. I'm gonna have to try. Nautiloid Ship. I'm gonna have to try. Pack Weapon. I really like. I really think that's a cool card. Black Market Connections. Everyone thinks this is a good card, and I agree. Bloodstealer Dragon seems really cool. Elder Brain, really cool. Other than that, everything else is average or worse. So yeah, big big creatures in this set. Okay. And then just some uncommons and commons, just to kind of go through. Bonecaller Cleric, I think, is just too expensive for what it does. Campfire, also too expensive for what it does. Very, very niche. Cloud Kill is for draft. I think a 6 mana, 6 mana, like -4 is just not going to do it. So you would need to maybe be playing Villas, and then Villas, Broker of Blood. You probably want something cheaper than this anyway. Like Mutilate's still cheaper than this. So yeah, I think it's probably just bad. Just for draft. Other than that, we have. Oops. Let's see. Rug of Smothering, I think, is really cool against kind of your Storm opponents. So if you've got a meta that has a very Storm style meta, then I think that's going to be really cool. I think Sigil of Merkle probably just doesn't do enough. It gets +1/+1 and it gains Death Touch if you have 4 or more creatures. Yeah, I don't think it's going to do enough because it only mills 1 card. Yeah, but it's a cool card. I think maybe it needed to be a little bit more pushed. Well, I mean, it's only an uncommon. Stone Speaker Crystals, cool. It's like Hedron Archive, but you get to exile any number of target players' graveyard, so that's really cool. So essentially you can target all your opponents and still keep yours, but 4 mana for a Hedron kind of archive where you get 2 mana is probably not very good. Varrock, if a permanent you control would leave this battlefield, each opponent loses 3 life. It's, once a turn. I think Armor of Shadows is kind of nice. It's cheap. 1 mana for Indestructible, which is usually quite a good effect. Really just gets around anything that's not negatives. So yeah, I really like this. These are normally 2 mana effects, so having it as 1 mana is quite nice. Atrocious Experiment, kind of like a cheap budgety draw where it's like Read the Bones, but instead you're milling 2 cards. So if you really care about the mill, then that's relevant. Chain Devil is I forget the card, but essentially it's a 4/2 horror for 4 mana, but this says non-token, so important to keep that in mind. So it means that you will get a creature card, so really, really great. So you might put this in your your sacrifice kind of decks. So yeah, I like this one. I think 4 mana might be too much though. Shardolin Dragon, not a good card, but definitely the best art in the set. Decanter of Endless Water, 1 additional mana for Thought Vessel, probably not worth it. Ghastly Death Tyrant, 6 mana, it's probably too much for your Feed the Swarm effect, but that's great for draft. Guild Swarm Prowler is pretty cool. 2 mana. If it wasn't blocking, it will draw a card, so that's kind of cool. Lantern of Revealing's probably too expensive. Mold Folk is a 1 mana sacrifice outlet, probably not too relevant. Merkle's Edict, I think, is probably bad considering that most of the time, well, almost most of the time, that it's just going to be choose opponent. So rather than each opponent sacrifice a creature, so 2 mana Edict's probably just not really worth it. Nefarious Imp, 3 mana, scry 1 when you have permanents leave the battlefield, so your treasures or your aristocrat style effects. It seems for scry 1 probably not worth it, when you could just play like Midnight Reaper or something. Nibblewright Schematic gives you 2 tokens. Summon Undead's 5 mana, it's probably too much. Yeah, and that's about it for uncommons. So I think for uncommons, not too much. I think Rug of Smothering people will like. Armor of Shadows will be underrated. Chain Devil might be the only thing that might see some play, but then it's a kind of like a card we already have that doesn't see play, but you might put that in your budget decks. Yeah, ultimately the commons and uncommons, I just don't see anything too relevant here. Yeah, nothing really speaks to me. Ghost Lantern's quite cheap. Whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. You might put this in your Savarok deck. Maybe. But yeah. Nothing too much. So yeah. That's my set review. I think there are plenty of commander options, which is great, and plenty of big creatures, which is great. The rest of the support around it, you know, I don't think it's adding too much to Mono Black. I think treasures are starting to be filled out, although Mono Black, you know, still, I think it still needs a lot more to go in terms of treasure acquisition to make a real treasure deck. Party also really not that well supported, I guess, or not really well themed. So yeah, overall I'm happy with the set. I think it feels like a standard, slightly powerful standard set, right? It does not feel like Commander Legends, but that's okay. I think it has a lot of cool cards. I think, yeah, a lot of cool cards, a lot of cards that people will try, and yeah, be disappointed with, and then just go back to their probably more optimized decks. But yeah, I think there's a lot of fun cards in here. Yeah, well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this set as well.